Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. You're making a face like I blew your eardrums out, Rick.
You just scared me, that's all.
A little bit. It is September 18th, flying through week 3 of the NFL season, getting closer and closer to Thursday night football.
Oh, man. I was going to correct you, but it is
Jacksonville.
Wow.
Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans.
Man, the game of the year there. I can't wait for that one.
I'd rather... Well, you see, we go into the season.
You want to watch it because you have Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I want to watch it because I have Leonard Fournette. But I was just going to say, we go into the season, and we're like, before the season, we're like, oh my God, I just want football. Any form of football. Give me football, give me football, give me football. And then we get to like Thursday night football, and we're all complaining about how bad football is. I'm like, let's just enjoy what we have while we have it. So there's that.
Wow, that's wise words.
My name is Morgan Colby. Got Rick Lemon right across from me, as always.
What's up?
Today, we will give you our Week 2 booms and busts, as well as some trade targets, and we're going to break down 8 matchups from the week, give you some matchup breakdowns. So, are you ready to get popping with this?
Let's get it, homie.
Before we get into anything, be sure to go to our website, fantasychampions.com. Content, articles, rankings, everything. Just go there and do whatever you will.
And turn up.
Follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs. Follow us on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. Subscribe wherever you listen. Apple's Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play. Click the bell for notifications on YouTube. Leave a comment. Leave a review. All that stuff. Let's get right into booms and busts.
Dude, you zoomed through that.
Yes, I did. Week 2 booms and busts. We're gonna give you not 3 guys. We're gonna go over the guys that went off this week. Okay. Just went bananas.
Patriots
defense went bananas. Highest scoring. Freaking. I don't even want to talk about that. And then the bust guys that completely collapsed and ruined your fantasy week. Deshaun Jackson, I look at you.
Joe Mixon.
He's like Joe Mixon. So let's start off with our booms. Obviously, we won't talk about the Patriots because that's ridiculous. That was kind of a wade in the end there because
you know what it is,
like
though?
3 picks.
Here's what I will
went for
say.
touchdowns or something ridiculous.
They did. Whoever plays, if you have a defense playing Miami Dolphins,
right?
You start them. You start that defense. I don't care if it's Cincinnati Bengals defense.
So you just.
I don't care if it's.
You just do it.
You do it, bro.
If somebody's facing Miami, just do it.
Just do it.
I played Baltimore and I got 18 week 1, I think, against Miami, and then we got 37. So there's a good track record. Good track record.
You're guaranteed double-digit points, I think.
That's ridiculous. Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver, Kansas City Chiefs. Talked about him on our last show. Waiver wire ad. 32 fantasy points.
Very good.
He did go bonkers this week.
That's the most he'll probably ever have. At least for this year.
He's like, you know what I'm thinking? Like, you spend this entire offseason scouting and figuring guys out, and then Demarcus Robinson week 2
gets 32
fantasy points.
That's how it works, bro.
That's exactly how it works. I remember doing my projections for the year, and Demarcus Robinson was the 4th receiver. Didn't give him any fantasy points. I was like, dude, you're trash. Patrick Mahomes, 31, normal day for him.
Just another day in the office for my boy Patty.
Lamar Jackson, 30 fantasy points.
You know, last week
It's continuing.
Yeah. I was saying to everybody, give him another start, and you were like, if he does it again.
Well, we don't need people who are not humble, boss.
No, I'm just saying. The
He's
streak
like,
continues,
I was right,
bro.
The streak continues.
And you were just saying, though.
Who's he got next week?
That is a very good question. Again, I should know these things off the top of my head. I got to look that up. But he did have a very easy matchup is what I will say.
He's had, so the next 4
he played
weeks.
The Dolphins on week 1, so let's.
He had the Dolphins and he had the Arizona Cardinals last week.
Right, which 2 easy matchups.
The next 2 weeks supposedly are easy matchups.
The Chiefs, I think, will be a high-scoring game, so I think he could do something in that game.
Oh, that's gonna get your popcorn ready, people.
Oh, that's the game of the week. Yeah, I think it's a 1:00 game though.
Lamar Jackson gets like.
So if you have a local,
why do you flex that?
So if you're like
if
you live in Miami,
we get to watch the Browns two night games in a row.
I know.
Flex it to Sunday night.
Not unfortunately that you
get the Browns out of there.
That's lit. But if you're a Dolphins fan,
I love Baker.
you have to watch the Dolphins game and whoever they're playing instead of Chiefs Ravens because it's a 1:00 game.
Yeah, that blows.
That does blow.
They'll probably flex it. I would think
They
that they're
have
gonna
to.
flex it. Dak Prescott. Yeah, baby. 28 fantasy points. My Zeke Dak stack is working out so well for me right now. Love you, Zeke. Love you, Prescott. He had 28 fantasy points. That offense, he started off in that game so slowly. It was like, I picked him up, I started him, and then after the first like quarter and a half, he had like -124 fantasy points. And I was like, man, the last 2 years in fantasy for me, I have just lost. I've struck out on every single quarterback that I ever got. I literally, last year, started the season with Wentz. He blew. Traded him away. Started Luck. He blew. Traded him away. Got Wentz back. He blew. Then tried to get Andrew Luck back. Got him back, and then he blew.
Yeah.
I had 2 quarterbacks the whole season, and I traded him away 3 times. Yeah, I'm just picking the wrong guys. You're right. Well, Dak Prescott ended my bad streak of quarterbacks.
It's funny. It's like the Cowboys and Eagles are as close as you can get to the Patriots, where they just play. Yeah. They're guaranteed to play crappy teams.
No, it's true.
They get to play the Giants and Redskins twice a year.
Wow. Do you think this is going to continue for Dak? Because right now, I saw an early considerations for MVP tweet today.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that for 2 weeks. But
Mahomes, Brady, Prescott, other guy names Lamar Jackson.
All quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We should just have a quarterback award and then
they do. They have quarterback of the year award.
Yeah, but nobody
sometimes the MVP doesn't win the quarterback of the year award.
Yeah, I don't get that.
That's ridiculous. He has Miami next week.
Oh, good. Dak Prescott?
Yeah. Start of the week. Literally the start of the week. We're not even at Thursday's show and we have a start of the week. And then he faces New Orleans, which I don't know. It's on Sunday Night Football, so that should be.
Is it in Dallas?
A little bit better. It is in New Orleans.
Not like he's not a not start, but I wouldn't expect big things out of him that week.
Yeah, I think the momentum is building, and I actually do believe what Kellen Moore is doing is working.
Yes,
he's actually utilizing Dak Prescott's ability to scramble. He even gave him like a straight up RPO this week, which I think it's Kyle. I don't remember his first name, but Linehan was the original offensive coordinator. He would never utilize like options and reads and all that stuff. He would just.
It was like a very old. It was built. It was an offense built for Tony Romo.
But like ever since Kellen Moore has taken over, the last 2 weeks he's being utilized in the running game too. So
right.
Yeah, Dak is about. This is what I told you before. When we started like scouting for the season, you go back to our show in March.
Wow.
Yeah. March and April and May, and like when we were talking then, we started talking about like players in the 2018 season, and Dak Prescott actually came out as one of our most consistent players. Yeah. Every week he gave you 18 to 20 fantasy points. He was always that good. He was consistent. That begs the question for me. It's been 2 weeks. But is this the new expectation for Dak Prescott with this new offense? That if he's going to be consistently good, or can we expect 25 to 30 fantasy points a week? Is that too much, or is that
25 to 30 is stretching it a little bit? Because then you've reached. Is he Mahomes level?
No, but I think he's good enough to be a top 3 quarterback this year. I mean, when you look at it right now, we talked about last year how the top 3 quarterbacks don't match last year's top 3 quarterbacks.
That is true.
And Lamar Jackson, would you say Lamar Jackson was a top 3 quarterback when the season started? No. Would you have said Dak Prescott is a top 3 quarterback when the season started? No. So the only guy that stays consistent here is Patrick Mahomes, and everyone else is just it's completely different. So obviously it's 2 weeks. We can't
And you had 2 very easy.
Oh yeah, but Giants, it's not going to change this week. The train is
no. Oh yeah, no. The Dak train will continue. I
think the one thing for the Cowboys is momentum. That's always how they play. When they're playing well, they play well.
Yeah. No, that is true.
Very good offense though.
Yeah. The top 3 finish thing. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go there.
You're just really buying in on Deshaun over here.
Deshaun.
Yeah.
No, it's just like I said, the 2 very easy. Like I want to see Dak when he starts playing real teams.
Yeah, no, I got you. You're starting to sound like me last year when I was talking about Mahomes.
That is true.
That
scares me. I shouldn't do that.
You shouldn't do that. Yeah, Dak, definitely a guy. He's a must start this week. If he continues to play at this level, he's a start for the rest of the season. Dalvin Cook, I didn't want to believe it at the beginning of the year because I felt like it was a stretch. 26 fantasy points. He just continues to roll. That
dude is a beast with the
He's an animal.
Ball.
He's perfect in that zone read offense. Perfect.
Yeah. And again, we said this a little bit last week, but just like watch him run. Like he's so aggressive.
Yeah.
And he's big and fast. Yeah. He's downhill. And he's always like when he gets up after a big run, he's always up and jumping up and down and like, let's go. He's like that type of runner. But that's the kind of running back I really like too. So I'm huge on Dalvin Cook right now. I mean, barring any injury, which is huge.
Another start of the week.
Yeah.
He's facing Oakland.
Oh, yeah. Keep riding the train.
The following week, though, he plays the Bears. So it's a situation to watch. I didn't believe the top three. There was people who were not putting him in the top three in their rankings,
but saying he could finish.
But saying he could finish top 5, top 3, and
I could see top 5.
Yeah.
Now.
I really did like Dalvin Cook when I started to hear and see some of the things from their system last year after they got rid of their offensive coordinator and when they started saying that they want to run more than pass, like all that stuff got me all hyped up about him, and I wasn't able to draft him. So but 26 fantasy points. He's a guy that you're going to ride the rest of the season. I mean, I think like if you were at the back end of the first round and you were at like pick 12 and you were at the turn and you needed to get a running back because you drafted a wide receiver first and you drafted Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Do you have the Saquon Barkley of this year?
Yeah, I think you do, but maybe not quite to that level. But yes.
I get what you're saying, but top 3 running back. Do you think that's a finishing?
I think he can. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he can.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm huge on Dalvin Cook. The only, but it's still a concern is injuries. Like he's had injuries his whole career so far. So I'm just kind of waiting.
Not in our league, but in another league, my team is slightly. It's 0-2 and it's dying. I drafted Melvin Gordon as my main running back, so there's that. Don't do that. I actually found in a league that like I care about all my leagues, but in this particular league, I decided to take a lot of quantitative risks. And they're not paying off at all. I had like AJ Green, Melvin Gordon, like all in my first 5 rounds. So I'm gonna lose like now with the end of the season, going for that playoff spot.
Late push, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have drafted Dalvin Cook instead of Melvin Gordon. But anyway, Julio
passed on.
I think so.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember. It's been so long. Julio Jones had 25 fantasy points. Normal day in the office for him. I did want to talk about, I don't want to continue talking about quarterbacks, so we'll skip over some now, but I did want to get to Tom Brady. 24.7 fantasy points. Is there an expectation for Tom Brady to continue this type of play, or is he going to be, like, because I know going into the season,
we completely.
He was way off our board, and it's only because based on what happened last year,
the amount of times they run the ball,
and the amount of times they run the ball, it was just not a situation that you wanted to be a part of. Even without AB, he was spectacular in 2 games. Like,
well, he had AB.
He had AB, but he only played in like the first quarter, realistically.
And he threw a touchdown to him. So,
Brady.
I think he could be a low end QB1.
I think he's a.
Which is a lot higher than what I thought he was.
You know what I mean? But I feel like I feel like a lot of people are going to have him. They're going to stick him on their team and hope that he turns into that every week guy, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
There's some weeks where they will run the ball to Sony Michel 20 plus times, and they'll get 3 rushing touchdowns, and he'll throw 1 TD pass and get like 15 fantasy.
Like that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see him. I mean, last year, you remember when Drew Brees started the season, midway through the season too.
Yeah,
he was going off.
He was having a great year.
He was
QB1 actually halfway through the year at QB2. No, Mahomes was 1. Drew Brees was 2.
Yeah, something like that. And once you hit late November, early December.
Yeah,
that's when guys like Brady and Brees start to deteriorate a little bit. They've been putting all of that. This
regular
is why
season at least, though, come back to the playoffs.
Yeah, right. Well, that's because those two both usually get time off. But I think when you're looking at Tom Brady, I think early season you could probably ride him. He's got a terrible schedule early. I mean, a great schedule for the Patriots early in the season. Like all the defense they're playing are garbage.
They play the Jets this week too.
The Jets are a little bit tougher, but
but
I would say
if CJ Mosley continues to miss time,
Yeah, that's a little bit tough.
Yeah.
But I when I look at Tom Brady, it's just he defies logic continually. But at some point, I think he's going to come down to earth. I would say Tom Brady at this point, he's not going to be on your waiver wire. So this is why I probably wouldn't suggest or say to wait for this. But I look at Tom Brady as a streaming option. When he faces the Bills have a good defense too. But when he faces a team like Miami, or he faces a trashy defense, and he can go out and shred them, anybody in the AFCs. What's funny is the Bills and the Jets actually have relatively decent defenses.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just don't know what to expect from Brady rest of season, and that's kind of like I'd rather go with a young guy like Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott or Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen over Tom Brady, just because those guys are going to.
Would you go with Josh Allen over Tom Brady?
Yeah. That hurt a little bit. Well, rest of the season. Rest of the season. Yeah. He's like he rolls his eyes.
I'd have to double check I know what you're saying. On Josh Allen's schedule, but
Emmanuel Sanders 23 fantasy points coming off that in half PPR and coming off that Achilles injury last year. He's been pretty good. Caught a touchdown pass in the game against Chicago. So he's been relatively decent to start the season. Is he somebody you're going back to, because he's always been a wide receiver too? Is he still that wide receiver 2 type play that you can hold on to, or are you like, okay, maybe this was just one decent game?
Yeah, I think it was probably just one decent game. It wasn't a good matchup. It was against Chicago, so it is kind of interesting. And with Joe Flacco as his quarterback, I'm not crazy about him.
He's like, no, I don't want to deal with that. Jones, 4 fantasy points week 1 against Chicago. I looked up the numbers before that game against who are they playing? Minnesota?
Yes.
I looked up the numbers against Minnesota, and I was like, I was joyfully surprised that he had 18 fantasy points last time he faced Minnesota. Aaron Jones is a interesting player because when he plays last week he had 4 fantasy points against Chicago, and he was not good. And usually against teams like Chicago, the upside of Aaron Jones is the fact that he can pass catch very well. So he's not going to be scripted out if he has a bad game on the ground, because he can put up numbers through the air as well. So if they have to pass more often than not, then that's what's going to happen. In that game, it was just everything on both offenses was bad. Yeah. I think give him 10 days, it worked out. I said he might be able to get 15, 20 fantasy points, and that's. I didn't say that on this podcast, but I said
we did say to trade for him though.
Yeah, we did say to trade. But like Saturday night, I was like, yeah, he's probably going to have a decent day, and this is probably the time to buy, because the Aaron Jones owner is probably going to be like,
yeah, now that he just got 20 plus points,
yeah, they're going to be like, no, I'm not selling him. He's my RB1.
And then last week they were crying, wanting to trade him.
They lost. So 23 fantasy points. Aaron Jones is back, dude. He had 27 touches.
Oh, that is a good sign. That is a really good sign. He had
27 touches, but he only had, I think it was 58% of the snap share. I don't even know how he got 27 touches.
Well, that just meant when he was out on the field, they were using him.
Right. If he continues to get 20 touches a game, he's a valuable asset.
Oh, yeah.
At 27, I mean, yeah. I talked about how he had that 1 fantasy point per opportunity during draft season. And if he gets the opportunity, he's going to be extremely efficient. And it looks like he's healthy. He's mentally there. He's good. So Jones is going to be a really good player this season. But I just want to continue. I need to see a little more of it in terms of how are they going to utilize him? Because it's not I don't want to sit here and say that he didn't have a good game, but he had a great game, but it's can that continue, or was it just one big situation where he was just really good?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And then I did some quick notes. Raheem Mostert, big game. Chris Godwin stealing Mike Evans' job over here. Mark Andrews went off with 21 fantasy points. 2 straight weeks with 20-plus fantasy points.
This year's George Kittle?
Might be, might not be. We'll see.
Wow, that's...
We'll see. Some busts of the week. Do you have any busts that you can think of in mind? I know Deshaun Jackson was
Joe
my first
Mixon
one.
once again, 2 straight weeks. Deshaun Watson.
Are you concerned about Joe Mixon?
Yes. I am. I think that offense, the offensive line is terrible. I don't know. I mean, he was slightly injured, so I'm not like
he's not
concerned.
His job's not getting stolen by Giovanni Bernard. I know a lot of people are like thinking that. I'm like,
I mean, even when Mixon was good, Bernard was getting touches. He's their third down back. He has been, but that won't change. He's still going to be their third down back.
He's not going to get any more than.
My thing is just like the way they've used him, Mixon, and kind of like the offensive line and all this thing. Like even Andy Dalton's.
It's not even him. It's just every single play, he's getting pummeled. And
but is that going to change? Is my
thing.
They
had in their first game, and I don't know much about this or how long he's out for, so don't quote me on it. But their star left tackle ended up getting hurt in the first game. So yesterday, on Sunday, not only did Joe Mixon have an ankle injury that he was playing through, but he also had freaking his left tackle was just out of the game. So it's like he was getting limited work and he was getting pummeled into the ground.
So here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. It's kind of interesting. I would be concerned.
Yeah.
However, if I didn't have Mixon, I would trade for him. Does that make sense? Like if I spent a high second round pick on Joe Mixon, I am concerned because I don't know if he's going to
succeed. But if you didn't spend that, you would buy it.
Then I'm like,
okay, all right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But what would you pay for him?
I wouldn't give him second round value, meaning
interesting
where he was drafted, but I would give him I'd give him like a WR2 and a low end RB2 maybe. So nothing out of the woodwork, but
yeah,
I would.
That was my question though. Is like Joe Mixon, is he like, that's what I was thinking about, is like, is he a buy candidate at this point? But people who spent a second round pick on him are probably
or even first in some leagues, like especially 12-team leagues.
Are they going to buy his value right now? Because some people just hold on to guys going, oh, they're going to be good at some point. They're going to be good at some point. They're going to be good at some point.
And then they ride it
till they die. Just ride it until they, yeah. And it's like, but they continue to ask like people, Juju Smith-Schuster owners, they're going to ride the second round value until they die. Yeah. And at this point, if you do want to sell him and you want to get rid of him, now is the time. But you can't be asking that second round price because it's not what he's worth. People are not going to do that. That's not good negotiating. That's just stupidity. If you want to sell a guy, then sell a guy. Like don't say, oh, well, I got to get a second round pick in return. No, this is 2 weeks into the fantasy football season. The landscape has shifted. Your draft is meaningless now. Yeah, you have to sell at what the value is. So I trade value charts. I.e. Wednesday, my trade value chart just launched. Check it out. Shameless plug. But yeah, I like to use trade value charts, look at the value of an actual player and figure out, okay, is this guy really actually that valuable, or am I just being a little bit overbearing? I'm still toiling on whether I would buy Joe Mixon. It just depends on the price. Yeah. That's kind of where I've landed. James Conner, 12 fantasy points this week. He had in one half. It was still relatively decent, but so far this season he's been a little bit of a bust. Yeah. Is he somebody that concerns you going forward?
If the knee is legit, then yeah. But if he's fine and healthy, I wouldn't say so. Yeah. At least not yet.
Josh Jacobs, 9 fantasy points.
Didn't he got hurt too in the game?
He did?
Yeah, he came back. Oh, but he did miss time in the game. I don't remember for how long though, but I do remember seeing that. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, he's going to be like that all year.
Up and down. Yeah. He's an RB2. He's basically what Sony Michel was last year. Yep. That's kind of what he literally reminds me of that. Right, yeah. Damian Williams had 7 fantasy points. Ugh. Julian Edelman had 7 as well. So if you started Julian Edelman, he was kind of like
it's a rare game where Edelman gets...
That's AB. The AB effect. I didn't think it was going to happen, but that could... I mean, he only had 4 catches in the game. It's not
honestly, they really didn't throw the ball that much.
Yeah, they went. I actually told you that before.
Like Josh
the game.
Gordon had a bad game. Edelman had a bad game.
I'm surprised Brady got as many fantasy points as he did without the touchdown, the rushing touchdown. He would have had. He had 24 fantasy points. He would have had freaking 18. So
it was the rushing touchdown, and they had a trash time touchdown pass to James
White. Yeah, that's right.
So if you take those two things out, he actually would have had a really bad game.
Yeah. Which I told you guys last week that he was probably not going to pass as much as you anticipated.
Yeah.
And that they were going to give the ball to Sony Michel. Now, Sony Michel didn't score 4 touchdowns. That was an overhyped thing, but you know what I mean. They did
give the ball to Sony.
They did give the ball to Sony and Rex Burkhead quite a bit. But Edelman, I mean, that's kind of just game script for Edelman. I wouldn't be too concerned about him. Williams, like I said, continues to happen. 13 fantasy points last week, 7 fantasy points this week in a half PPR setting. Right now, he's becoming fringe flex.
Yep.
So, I mean, how you spent a second round pick on him? I cannot. I told you not to spend a second round pick on Damian Williams, and if you did, you learn, and then you move forward.
Yep.
And so I didn't want to draft Damian Williams in the second round for this very reason. I didn't want to draft Damian Williams until like the late 4th, early 5th round, and that's what his value is right now.
Yeah.
Essentially. So if you do own Damian Williams, I would start searching. If you have somebody who is just infatuated with Damian Williams,
he's a Chiefs fan.
Really huge Chiefs fan, sell him now or find a way to upgrade your RB position because you can't rely on Damian Williams long term. He might have a really good week of like 15, 20 fantasy points here or there sprinkled throughout the season.
Yeah.
But relying on that happening every week is just not something that you like. If you spent a second round pick on him, who is going right near where Damian Williams was being thought about drafted?
Dalvin Cook.
And you drafted Damian Williams. So like that's the mistake of the century right there. Hey, in 5 weeks we could be having a completely different discussion. But as of right now, the mistake was drafting Damian Williams, and it's clear. Mm-hmm. You have any more busts for us?
I'm kind of looking through them right now. Mike Evans again has not really done too much.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin's gotten a lot of the work, and they didn't really like.
He actually had more targets than Godwin last week. Yeah, but he just.
So that's like an encouraging sign then. Some of the running backs that.
Oh, I have this question. For you. I was meant to ask it when you brought up Mike Evans.
Okay.
Would you trade right now Mike Evans straight up? Would you trade if you were the Godwin owner? Would you trade Godwin straight up for Mike Evans?
If I had Chris Godwin,
I got this question earlier this week from a faithful listener. You would?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would too.
Yeah, because I think rest of the season Mike Evans is going to be better than Chris Godwin.
There is a chance that both finish as wide receiver 1s, and one's like 8 and one's 9. There's a very good chance that happens.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised. It's happened before with Bruce Arians' offenses. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with either. There's also a chance that Mike Evans completely just poops his pants the entire season, and we're totally wrong about that. But I think who's the star player? Who's the guy with more experience? Who's the guy's the number 1 receiver in that offense? And it's Mike Evans.
And Jameis Winston's favorite target. Too.
Right. And so it's like if you... Like, next week we'll see big. Like, is Chris Godwin now the new favorite?
If Mike Evans has 3 straight weeks where he doesn't perform,
then you can start... Because everyone was asking the question after Thursday Night Football. They were like, is Mike Evans now the wide receiver 2 and is Godwin the wide receiver 1? Because he's been playing way better than Mike Evans at this point. And do they make that shift? Or is... Because Mike Evans has never been... And he's never been targeted enough to be a high-end wide receiver, like a top 5 guy.
Yeah.
And he's always been like back end of the wide receiver 1 conversation, 8 to 12. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so now you're looking at Chris Godwin coming in, and it's like, I didn't believe it when people said that Chris Godwin could finish ahead of Mike Evans, and I didn't want to believe it. And I thought the hype was getting too much. But at this point, it looks like a real possibility. And if it happens again this week, then we have to really start considering that Mike Evans might not be what we think he is this year.
Yeah.
I would trade Chris Godwin for Mike Evans. I don't think it lasts very long.
Right. A few, like McCaffrey had 6 fantasy points, disappointing. Alvin Kamara had 7. OJ Howard 0 fantasy points this week.
What do you do with OJ Howard this week? You're an OJ route. Oh, you cut him. Yep. You go straight to the cut.
Yeah, I'm done with OJ.
You're like, see you later. I did that with Cam Newton this week. I was like, see ya.
Yeah. I mean, luckily for me, I do have him on my fantasy team, but I drafted. He fell very I got him in the 10th round.
You didn't.
So he was pretty much useless for me.
Spend a lot of
money.
But
for a lot of people who drafted him late in the 4th, early 5th round pick, it's terrible situation to be in right now. I wouldn't cut him if I had drafted him that high.
Yep.
But you're on the verge of cut. If he has another week where he gets under 10 fantasy points.
Yeah, I would say if I was an O.J. Howard owner, just thinking logically, it's hard to keep him for another week. Yeah. Because
especially if there's guys like Mark Andrews on the waiver wire.
So the Bruce Arians system has not fielded a tight end one in a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure. I don't want to misquote this, but it's either a very long time or ever.
Ever.
Yeah. So he does not utilize the tight end position that much, and so a lot of people thought, O.J. Howard is in this offense. He's talented, and it's the Bruce Arians has never had a tight end that's talented before thing. But as of 2 weeks,
he just doesn't like.
Using tight ends. So I would if you have a roster spot, don't start O.J. Howard, but I would hold on to him for one more week, see what happens. If they do start utilizing him, then you have the tight end. But I don't want to drop him this week and then find out, if you have a really, really good tight end, like your situation with Mark Andrews, like if you have Mark Andrews and O.J. Howard, drop O.J. Howard. Yeah. See you later. If you have no other option, hold on to O.J. Howard, find another tight end that can play for you this week, and then see if O.J. Howard plays well this week. And then if you do, then you keep him, you hold on to him, and you see what happens. But I usually like to give a player 4 weeks before I'm like, all right, see you later.
Yeah.
He gets 2 points next week, he's gone. Like, he's done. I don't own him in any leagues, so there's that. I don't like to draft tight ends early.
Right.
I wanted to bring up Allen Robinson. Had a great week one. Awesome performance. Everyone was really excited. It was like the Thursday night first game of the season hype was real.
Right.
And they moved him up all the way from like 25 to like 15, 14 in the ECR. And
we moved him up a little too.
We moved him up a little bit too. And,
not quite to that level.
6.1 fantasy points this week. In half PPR.
That's Allen Robinson, I know.
Terrible performance. Yeah, that's the Allen Robinson. Their offense is just bad at this point. Yeah, it's
just their offense.
Even as much as I love David Montgomery, I don't even want to touch David Montgomery either. Like, there's just so much of that offense that's like, and maybe Monty is a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but like,
if there's anyone in that offense,
it's probably Montgomery. Yeah, but I just think their offense is so bad right now that it's like they shouldn't have. They deserved not to win last week. How bad they played offensively, and they still pulled it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Allen Robinson is not start worthy until he proves he can be consistent. He kind of reminds me of Amari Cooper when he was on the Raiders.
Yeah.
It's a fair estimation. Like if he had a quarterback,
totally inconsistent.
Yeah.
Shows flashes of being really good.
Yeah.
But
it is what it is. Cortland Sutton flipped around. Good week, then had a bad week. Normal stuff. Will Fuller has been bad 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. The whole offense was Deshaun. Like I said, Deshaun Watson had 12 fantasy points.
Right.
The offense just did not do anything against Jacksonville last week. So tough matchup. But Will Fuller, there's too many weapons.
Yep.
There's just too many weapons. Unless Deshaun Watson is going to throw 40 touchdowns this year.
Right.
There's too many weapons on that offense.
Is there anyone else? I have one more question for you. Is there anyone else you would drop at this point, or, I mean, not drop? Anybody else that you saw as bust this week, or
another tight end, but Jared Cook? Like we were talking.
Had a guy come up to me in I think it's our Instagram league.
Okay.
He said Jared Cook straight up from Mark Andrews. I was like, what? He's been trying to sell Cook for like 3 weeks.
I would be too, but
I drop Cook,
especially with Breeze out too. I mean,
I could trade with the waiver wire. Yeah. I just wanted to ask about Miles Sanders. He had, I believe it was 3 points last week. He had 5 points this week. He's gotten basically the same snap count, same workload. Do you see a lot of people coming into the season, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, but coming into the season, a lot of people looked at Miles Sanders as a big time, like he could take over and be the running back one this year for the Philadelphia Eagles and actually finish as like an RB2 and be that good because the Eagles' offensive line was that good. We had our reservations about Miles Sanders just because of opportunity and how much he was like, there's so much going on in that backfield that it was tough to see him producing at a 6th round pick level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's where we were with Miles Sanders. I really do like Miles Sanders. But when do you, as a fantasy owner, come to a time where you say, okay, I got to drop Miles Sanders?
I'm not at that point yet.
Okay.
Because he is a rookie running back, and like we signed Nick Chubb last year.
Right.
I don't want to.
He got burned.
Right. I don't want to be in that situation again.
Right.
I would be patient on Miles Sanders. You definitely don't start him though. Like he's just.
There were questions. There were a lot of questions from the fantasy football community of like, should I start Miles Sanders?
No.
And at this point, don't even ask the question. Like
he should just be placed on your bench.
There are going to be people who are going to be like, you said he wasn't startable, and he scores a touchdown, and he gets like 12 points. Yeah. I'm like, all right, boss.
But that's why you're waiting, though, because you have to see that first in the NFL, because he has not done it yet.
He hasn't done it. I mean, he's shown flashes of being really, really good. When I watch his games, he had a 21-yard, I think I talked about this before, he had a 21-yard touchdown, juked 2 defenders, got in, but there was a back-end holding call.
Yep.
And
I hate that. Justin Jackson this week had a 60-yard touchdown run.
And it got called back. They need to keep the flag in their pockets. That's a side note, but this week has been terrible for officiating.
Especially that, I don't know if you saw that play.
Yeah.
But they called it at the end. He was Justin Jackson for the Chargers, and this would have changed the whole game, too.
Yeah.
He was at the 3-yard line. So he had pretty much already he ran the entire way. He was the full 57 of the 60 yards. He's at the 3 line.
And then they throw the flag.
And they threw the flag on the receiver from like 5 yards back, like slightly grabbed one of the D-backs that wasn't even going to come close to him. He would have scored no matter what. Yeah. And they took back the whole play. Can't do that. And the Chargers ended up losing the ball at the 1 yard line.
You can't do that. You cannot do that.
Change the game.
It's ridiculous. So I just wanted to bring that up on Miles Sanders. If you is it similar to the David Montgomery situation? Monty had a touchdown this week. 13
Montgomery's definitely in a better situation.
He's a better, than
he's Miles Sanders, but I mean, again, I wouldn't totally lose faith in Miles Sanders right now.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. Week 2 booms and busts in the books. Let's get to our trade targets really quickly. Get through these and then move on to our matchup breakdown. Get to as many of these as we can. The top 3.
We'll just briefly go over them.
Buys of the week for us. Our trade targets. We're not going to give you sells anymore. It ain't worth it.
No.
You shouldn't sell. You shouldn't sell. Well, you should sell, but
you got to sell the right guys. The bench players.
Do you want to start off with this one because this one is not mine?
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right.
I actually kind of was on towards the end. I didn't vocalize it, but I was kind of on the bust George Kittle train a little bit.
Okay.
Towards the end, but
George Kittle.
You're on the George Kittle.
Now's that perfect time to buy him because I think teams who drafted George Kittle are like, oh, maybe it was, he hasn't really done anything crazy at this year. For me, George Kittle, he is the number 1 weapon in that offense still. He had a touchdown that was taken back in week 1 that would have had him have a big week. He's one of those big 3 tight ends that hasn't done any. I mean, none of the 3 tight ends have actually really gone off yet this year.
Right.
But George Kittle's probably been, out of those 3, hasn't done the most yet.
Right.
And the way Garoppolo has played, though, he's been very good. And I think you can keep that up and continue that.
Yep.
And if that happens, Kittle won't be getting 6 points a game. If Garoppolo throws 3 touchdowns and 250 yards or 300 yards, Kittle's not going to get 6 fantasy points.
I think the 49ers, and when you look at early in the season when, George Kittle, when you look at the first 3 weeks of the season last year, 4 weeks of the season when George Kittle, quote, broke out, I don't think he had a 20-point game. And for me, when I look at Kittle, when Garoppolo was on the field, he wasn't as efficient. And then when they went to the backups were just like, okay, the only thing we're going to do is just toss it to George Kittle the whole time because we don't know who else to throw it to. So then when Garoppolo gets back, all of a sudden the 6 and 8 point games continue. This is actually not inconsistent with what George Kittle did last year a lot of the time. He's a 8 to 10 fantasy point a game guy who puts up, if he gets a touchdown in a game, he ends up getting 15 and 20 fantasy points. That's kind of where it ends
Which
up.
for a tight end is still...
Right, no, that's still very good.
Yeah.
A guy I see very similar to playing like him right now is Darren Waller. He's not going off like Mark Andrews, but he's doing like 9-10 fantasy points a week.
What did he do this week?
He had 9. Last week he had 10. So it's like 10, 9. As soon as he scores a touchdown, he's getting targeted enough to do that. As soon as he scores a touchdown, then it becomes a 16, 17 point game. Mark Andrews is doing the same thing too, but
he's getting the touchdowns.
George Kittle, this is a weird year for tight end. I want to see 4 weeks of the season.
Every year for tight end is weird. That's why we stayed away from
tight ends. Look far more efficient this year.
Yeah.
Than
that is true.
Years.
Yes. Yeah.
So it is a little bit. I don't know if that's just a fluke for the first 2 weeks or if it's real, but
it's like it's a lot of random tight ends. Like Kelsey's having a good year, obviously, but for considering a lot of people took him in the second round, it's like, is he really meeting up to standard? Because in week 1, I think he had like 10 points.
Yep.
And then last week he got like 16, which is good.
Right.
And it's what Travis Kelce does, but it's not like something that was worth that high. But then you have a guy like Mark Andrews who has 2 straight weeks with 20 plus fantasy points. So it's like it's odd.
Yeah. So I'll do the number 2 guy, and then we'll talk about the number 3 guy. James Conner is also one of your guys, but I would buy James Conner right now. The James Conner owner is probably sitting there going, James Conner, he's hurt. He hasn't played well.
Ben Roethlisberger.
I drafted him as my number 1 running back. I need to sell him right now.
Yeah.
And then they try to sell him, and no one buys. I would buy James Conner. I would reach out to the owner of James Conner and say, please, I want to make an offer. I think he's worth buying. What's his value at this point? Like, what would you buy him at?
Probably like a high-end RB2, low-end RB1, in that range.
You would spend that much?
Yeah.
What if you have 3 wide receiver ones?
Well, then, yeah.
Let's go. No, I mean, I feel like spending a RB2 for an RB low, a mid to low. All right. An RB1.
Oh, are you saying, wait. Are you asking what Connor's value is?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. You're selling the same player to get another player.
Oh, no. Okay. I thought you were saying, like, what is Connor considered right now?
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah.
I would say high-end RB1 and low-end RB2.
Yeah, what's his value? If you were trying to trade for him, what's his value?
Yeah, I would say probably like a...
That whole sequence was unnecessary.
Yeah, that was... Yeah. I'd probably try to trade like a WR2 for him and a flex running back to a team and say like James Conner, Roethlisberger is out now for the season.
Right.
James Conner hasn't been that good. I would give him like a Cooper Kupp and like a good flex option and say like, well, these guys have been good so far this season. You could do this.
Yeah.
And try to convince them that way. So that would kind of be my starting offer.
All right. So just for kicks, throw out some wide receiver 2s. See if you have the James Conner in your league. So if these people approached you, would you say yes?
Well, that's a little different, but
well, you don't think about what team it is. Just give us the answer. So would you trade Cooper Kupp for? Would you trade Cooper Kupp for James Conner? Okay. Would you trade Allen Robinson for James Conner? Sammy Watkins for James Conner? Okay. Diggs for James Conner?
No.
Godwin for James Conner?
See, this is a one where I probably wouldn't, because I believe James Conner is going to better. But if you have Chris Godwin on your team, and
because we're also talking to the owners of James Conner as well, and they're like, should I sell him?
Right. I wouldn't sell James Conner.
Antonio Brown for James Conner. I'm negotiating for fantasy owners everywhere.
Like, again, if you have...
This is what it's like to negotiate when you're witnessing this live. I don't have Antonio Brown.
That's somebody like...
Diggs and Ingram. Diggs and Ingram.
Me personally, I'm not trying to trade Conner because I think he's going to... But like, if you're trying to get James Conner,
this is what you would offer.
And somebody is definitely going to want to trade him in your league because of the situation, and you can at least, he's in a vulnerable spot to convince the person to trade him at least.
Right.
I think Chris Godwin, is somebody that could consider. Through 2 weeks, he's been excellent.
Yep.
Antonio Brown now playing under Tom Brady instead of Derek Carr is somebody that you could consider, make an argument for. Like, there's guys in that range.
You can make an argument.
You can definitely make the argument for. And if I had the wide receiver in that situation, I would definitely pull the trigger.
Now, if you had Juju,
okay,
probably shouldn't put my hand in front of the microphone when I'm trying to talk. If you had Juju and you wanted James Conner, do you think that would be something that would be a deal?
For who?
James Conner.
Yeah, but which, like, am I getting James Conner?
Yeah. Would you offer that?
I would trade Juju for James Conner.
Okay, and then if you were on the flip side of that,
I probably wouldn't.
Okay, all right. We'll move on. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely reach out. I don't think there's a situation where you don't reach out to people.
Oh, well, that's the biggest thing.
There are certain players that are buyable at certain moments because you want to play it right. Like if a guy like last year, Le'Veon Bell was up and down in this roller coaster of whether he was going to come back or not. And some people were like believing that he could come back.
Yeah.
And then there are some people who didn't believe, but the people who believed you could sell him to. And then he was also a good buy option in case he did come back. And so it's like that's kind of the situation. Obviously, circumstances are like James Conner hasn't been playing great, kind of has the knee injury. He's buyable right now.
Right.
But everyone's buyable in the league. Let's move on to wide receiver Amari Cooper. This is a little bit more of a surprising one, but this is a twofer.
Yes.
To a twofer. If you have two good running backs, but you're not using them, they're on your bench, but you need a wide receiver desperately, Amari Cooper is a good option. He's been playing good. He's been consistent, and he'll probably stay consistent, especially with the way he's going up against Miami this week. So, but if you don't have Amari Cooper and you need a wide receiver, I would reach out to the Amari Cooper owner because he's not going to be too much, and he's not going to be somebody you can steal because he's been playing bad. He's been playing good,
right?
But he's not a guy that's been playing out of the like crazy good. So I think he could be a buy candidate for you if you reach out to that team and you're like, hey, you need running backs. I got running backs.
Amari Cooper is a guy who's I think a low-end wide receiver 1 right now, and he's coming off a week where he got 12 fantasy points. If you're going to buy him, this would be a good time to do it, where he's kind of like, the owner's like, he's just like Amari Cooper. He had a very average week this week. So he's not in the best spot to trade him for, but he's not in a bad spot either.
Right.
Matter of fact, it's a good spot to trade for him right now. Because sometimes, like Joe Mixon, for example, who we were debating about putting in this spot. Mm-hmm. As a buyer, you're concerned about that.
Yeah.
Because he's been that bad so far this year. There's legitimate questions. But with a guy like Amari Cooper, it's like he didn't have a great week, but he's been plenty good enough that he's going to have a good year, and he's definitely open to go after. So it's a little different situation. There's not as much like concern for a guy like Cooper, so that's definitely why he should be on a buy list. Right.
Let's get into our weekly matchup breakdown. We're going to try to do as many as we can here before we run out of time. And then we can do the rest on Thursday's episode.
Yes.
So let's start out with the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vegas's opening line hit the open. All right. The opening line for this game is 48.5.
Oh, that's got to go down. That's going to go down.
Yeah, it should go down.
It's going to be like 20-10.
I'm like, dude, what the frick? Let's start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's Gardner Minshew last game didn't impress.
Yeah.
It wasn't a garbage can, but it wasn't great either. What are you doing right now with Leonard Fournette? Because I currently own Fournette in one of my leagues, and this is the consistent thing that I've thought about, is that he's a guy that has been getting an insane amount of work. He's always putting up 90 to 100 yards. The only thing that's not happening right now is touchdowns, and it's probably because that offense blows.
Yeah, chunks. I don't know. This week Tennessee's got a good rush defense. They held Marlon Mack to 7 fantasy points.
Yep.
And in week 1, I think Nick Chubb got like 10. So I don't think Fournette's gonna go crazy this week, but in a very crappy Thursday night game, I could see him getting a touchdown in like Jacksonville. It's one of these Thursday night games that could go really either way.
Yep.
So what are you asking? Like, is Fournette like a good start? Is Fournette like what?
If you drafted Fournette in the second round, you're starting him. That's not really a question.
Okay. Well, so what are you kind of asking here?
Do you have any concerns with Leonard Fournette?
Oh, just in general?
Yeah,
because I think the offense is kind of hot garbage.
Like if you had to put him in it after seeing 2 games of the season, where would you put him? Like, kind
of where he was drafted.
RB2.
Yeah.
Or a low end RB1, high end RB2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like bad.
I wouldn't disagree.
Fournette. I just don't know how many touchdowns he's going to get this year.
For me, I think this is the thing with Fournette. You remember last year with Julio Jones, and I don't want to get stuck on this, but Julio Jones had like an insane amount of yardage, and he was putting up, but he didn't score a touchdown. But as soon as he scored a touchdown, opened the floodgates. I think it's a similar situation. Like, he's going to spend the first 4 weeks searching for a touchdown. It's not going to happen, but as soon as he hits pay dirt, it's going to start happening every week. Because what happens is the offensive coordinator and the head coach are going to be like, oh, this is our main weapon, so we're going to start using it when we get in the red zone.
The difference between that, though, is they don't even get in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, they were in the red zone like 2 or 3 times yesterday, so something like that.
You're gonna hope.
But you want DJ Chark on your team. So.
I guess that's.
So if you have D.D. Westbrook, DJ Chark, and Chris Conley in this game. All three have actually been not.
I'm not
terrible.
starting any of them.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going to ask.
I'm not
starting.
I know I have a very bad. You could call it an addiction, I guess. It's very bad for you. I have this disease called starting someone on Thursday night just to watch the game.
Don't do that.
You really shouldn't do that.
Do not do that.
Because not only because it's usually a bad game, but it's a bad game. Thursday night football matchups are almost always bad for fantasy, just in general. So, you shouldn't do that.
Let's move to the Tennessee Titans. Mariota has been actually relatively decent so far this year. He has. The first week of the season,
That's like his whole career, relatively decent.
That is like, yeah, you're right. He had 3 touchdowns the first week. I'm trying to figure out what he had this past week.
It wasn't great. He didn't have a great week this last week. They lost to the Colts. I had the numbers a second ago. I could bring it up.
Dude, what the frick? You gotta be more prepared than this. I might beat you to the numbers.
You're going to because my phone.
All right, so he had 19, 20. He's 19 for 28, so he had a better completion percentage, but he only threw 154 yards and a touchdown. So that's normal Mariota-ness. That's
called throwing 4-yard passes every time.
Against Jacksonville, he is a non-starter. But I think actually Mariota might be a streaming option against a terrible defense.
Yeah, I mean against Miami or something like that.
He's like, just throw at Miami.
No, I mean I get
anyone against Miami is going to be good.
Yeah, that's true. But like there'll be other options. Like
right. No, I got you.
No, he could be a streaming option. No.
Derrick Henry has been spectacular this year. 16 fantasy points last week. 20. As soon as Derrick Henry stopped scoring touchdowns, which I don't think is possible. I was very wrong on Henry.
I wish I said that 180 on the show before the season started.
20. I mean, we'll see what happens. It's only been 2 weeks, but he had 28 fantasy points week 1, 16 fantasy points week 2. I'm in this situation now, like with Derrick Henry, where he's a guy that's going to get you 8 fantasy points a game, and then if he scores a touchdown, he gets 16. Exactly what he did this week, and I said that last week. If Derrick Henry, do you expect Derrick Henry to stop scoring touchdowns at this point?
Not really.
Like, he's the guy in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like, when I play Madden, I have a specific sweep play. I have a specific sweep play that beats defenses every time. So when I get in the red zone, I don't even try to throw it. I just give it to my running back. That's the Tennessee Titans. Like, just give it to Derrick Henry. He's going to get it in.
Yeah, I think the only starts for Thursday night football this week is Derrick Henry and Fournette. That's it.
Yeah, that's 2 owners right there. What about Delaney Walker? Any Delaney Walker love out there? Not against Jacksonville.
Yeah, not against Jacksonville.
It's going to be. I think the open was 48.5. It's
going to go down to like
right now.
40 probably.
MGM has him at 40. Yeah. I thought that's a very wide open. Let's move on to the Dolphins at the Cowboys.
Okay, there's not really too much to say about this one. We'll just go to the next one. If you have a Cowboys player on your team, you're starting him. And that includes Cowboys defense.
Stop.
And a kicker.
The Cowboys, I'm trying to find it right now. The Cowboys game over under is not. Okay,
it's not listed.
It's not listed. Yeah, 47.
That's 46 for Dallas and 1
46
for Miami.
for Dallas and 1 for Miami.
I don't know how the Dolphins are going to get 1 point, but they'll find a way.
Yeah, there's nothing to watch for
they get
the
minus points for a bad play.
Prescott must start.
Oh, you know what? Field goal is?
Zeke must start. Amari Cooper must start. Yeah, very much to talk about in this game.
Yeah, if you're looking at starts and sits, it's sit everybody on the Dolphins, start everybody on Dallas.
The only guy I would ask a question on, and I said this before. Does this change your opinion on streaming Jason Witten this week?
Yes, it does. Against Miami,
everyone.
Michael.
You get a fantasy point. You get a fantasy point.
Michael Gallup.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's out for like a month. So
Yep.
Jason Witten, I think, is actually
Randall Cobb get a bump.
Yeah.
Randall Cobb.
PPR.
Yep.
Yep.
That could be an interesting situation. Keep an eye on Randall Cobb. Some people are going to overbuy. Why don't you just pick him up now before people just go crazy? Let's move on to our next game. The Broncos at the Packers. The line for this one is 43.5. It opened at 43.5. Right now it's at 43, depending on the source. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything on Denver's team that's startable?
It's interesting. Philip Lindsay again.
You know who's getting more snaps? And who's getting more touches?
Do you start Royce Freeman though?
No.
he did have in half PPR. I think he had 13 points this week, so it's not bad.
They're playing the Packers. Who did they play this week? Dalvin. Whatever.
But that's Dalvin Cook.
I was going to try to get some information that was helpful to whether they were going to be good or not. But yeah.
And in week 1, you can't find that out either because it was the Bears not knowing what they were doing at running back. So
yeah, that's true.
I
mean,
I wouldn't start Royce Freeman.
Rest of season though. Royce Freeman or Philip Lindsay.
Right now it's Royce Freeman.
There are some Philip Lindsay truthers out there. There's still some. Because of my take, I was rooting against Philip Lindsay, but as a person, I don't root against Philip Lindsay.
No, I think for the Broncos' sake, too, they both...
Yeah.
I'm rooting for both of those guys.
Yeah.
Because if they can get the next, like, Kamara, Ingram type situation... But
what world do you want to root for Joe Flacco?
None. Right. I like Freeman, though.
So, yeah,
and Lindsay.
Royce Freeman's probably the guy to own in this backfield. If you do have Philip Lindsay, now is the time to sell. Now is the time to sell. Emmanuel Sanders, is he, after his 23-point week, is he a guy that's startable this week against...
Probably not. I think it's going to be like Sutton's going to have a good week, then Sanders is going to have a good week, then neither of them are going to have a good week type of thing. So I probably wouldn't. So if Sanders has another solid week though, then yeah. And I think if you don't have any other options too, it's not like there's worse options to go than Sanders, especially in like a PPR, half PPR as like a flex spot,
right?
But I'm not going out of my way to start Emmanuel Sanders.
Okay, so we have had some troubles this last couple weeks with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Against Denver, is he a guy you want to be a part of?
In week 1, we said don't start him. Last week, we said he would be a little bit better, but still don't start him. In week 3, I think he'll be a little bit better. I would start him. I know Denver has a good defense, but it's at home in Green Bay. I think they're going to probably control the game. Again, I don't see him getting a 30-point week, though, which is if you drafted him as a second or third quarterback, that's what you're expecting from him.
Right.
I don't see that happening again this week with Denver's solid defense, but I do think he'll get 20 to 25 points and be a good start.
Right. The last 2 weeks, the Denver Broncos have played the Chicago Bears and the Oakland Raiders. Against the Raiders, they gave up 22 fantasy points to Josh Jacobs. Against the Bears, they gave up 13 fantasy points to David Montgomery. So does that give
Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones is, I would say, in line for a 15, 20-point week.
Yep.
He should be a safe start. So I wouldn't be panicking if you have to start him. Devontae Adams obviously must start. Here's the debate of the century: Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who busted this week and probably the week before, or Geronimo Allison.
In week 1, it was
like
Scantling.
7. It was 7 fantasy points.
Geronimo Allison had 0 in week 1.
And Geronimo Allison
this week, Geronimo Allison caught a touchdown. And yeah, so I would say neither of those guys. Stay away from them.
If you had either of them,
oh my gosh,
which one you choose?
I'd go Scantling just because Geronimo Allison had a good week.
Stop.
So I'm going to say the other guy gets the good week this week.
I think the fact that people had to choose the second wide receiver on the Packers this year, like that was a thing for people, is completely crazy. Like why does a second wide receiver on the Green Bay Packers have to succeed? Why can't it just be
that one? Was like a late sleeper for us type thing. Like, oh yeah, take the. But there were people who legitimately were like, take this guy.
Jimmy Graham against Denver. Denver's defense is not as notorious for giving up fantasy points to tight ends. Jimmy Graham. Do you think this is a game that Jimmy Graham could do another?
He actually
pop a touchdown. He could make it look.
I'm not trying to start. I'm not a Jimmy Graham.
He's like, I'm not trying to start Jimmy Graham, but
yeah, this could be a week. If you own him and you don't have a lot of options, I would start.
Yeah, start him against Denver. Let's talk about our next game: the Falcons at the Colts. The line.
That's a very interesting game.
Very interesting game. The line right now opened at 48. It's at 47.5 over under this. It's not high scoring, but it's there.
Yeah.
Pretty close. We'll start with the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, a must start this week or against Indy?
I don't know if he's a must start, but yeah, he's a start. He's a start.
All right. He hasn't had a bad start to the season. I mean, it hasn't been, spectacular.
He's like he's very trash timey. Like he gets a lot of.
He's like he blows.
The first 3 quarters of games, he gets like 10 to 15 points, and then he finishes the game with like 20. So.
Devonta Freeman.
He has stunk this year so
he's
far.
He's been pretty bad. And okay, when we started the season, what was my number? I had 2 concerns about Devonta Freeman. A, he was going to get hurt.
Yes.
Well, that hasn't happened yet, so that's not an Oracle thing. But B was how Dirk Cutter utilizes running backs and how bad they have been.
Yeah.
Bottom of the league in efficiency, bottom of the league in attempts, bottom of the league in basically every running back category. With Devonta Freeman in that system, how was he going to play? Played a little bit better, 7.9 fantasy points. The week before, I don't remember what he had, 3, something like that.
Yeah, it was like 2, I think. 2 or 3.
But he has not been up to par lately, and that does not surprise me. This is why I wasn't like when you first start scouting for fantasy football and you're looking in your drafts and you're like, oh my god, and then you see Freeman there. In what was it, the 4th round? I don't remember.
It's like the 3rd round.
Yeah, 3rd or 4th round.
Late 3rd round.
People were like, wow, Devonta Freeman, I'm going to go out and grab him right now. Let's go. And you have to look deeper into this stuff. And I think Devonta Freeman. I mean,
we were on that board too. We liked Freeman.
Oh, at the beginning, at first, yeah. And then I started looking into Dirk Cutter's numbers, and he scared me. So I mean, I don't think Devonta Freeman's going to absolutely blow, but for some reason, Devonta Freeman is splitting work with Ito Smith, and Smith looks good. Yeah. So he's not. I mean, not in fantasy. He's not producing like good, but he physically looks.
If Freeman's on your team, do you start him this week?
No. Against Indy? No, probably not.
Derrick Henry last week had 15 fantasy points, right? 16 fantasy points.
Yeah.
And then the week before, Austin Eckler got like 35 on him, 37. So.
And it's a 40. What is it? 48 over under. I don't remember.
Yeah. If Freeman has another bad week though this week, he's done.
Like, you're like, I'm done with him.
I'm complete. I am.
See
if I'm a Devonta Freeman owner and he has a bad week this week, I am done with Devonta Freeman.
Wow.
You said 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You told me.
Can you sell him now?
You get 4 weeks. Yeah, I would. Well, what are you gonna get for him? Right. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I would just keep an eye on Freeman. It's not like he blows. It's just I don't know. If he has a 15-point week, then you got Freeman.
Oh well, yeah. But if he gets 5 points this week?
I don't know. You're not cutting him. You're not dropping him.
I'm not cutting him, but I'm like
you're searching for options.
Yeah, I don't.
I also noticed that the years that Devonta Freeman was the number 3, 4, 1, number whatever, top 5 running back in fantasy football, those years were low-scoring years for running backs. So I also look at that and I was like, he's never scored over 250 fantasy points in half PPR. So like that was concerning to me too. So just keep an eye on Freeman. If he performs well this week, I would sell high.
Right.
Julio Jones must start. Calvin Ridley. 14 points game 1.
Start Calvin Ridley.
20 points game 2.
He's the Chris Godwin to...
What did I tell you early in the season about Dirk Cutter as well?
Yeah.
He likes to target 2 guys.
I was just scared about Sanu.
This is very similar to like a Antonio Brown Juju situation where they both could get targeted 150 times. Like that's very reasonable. Yeah, and Sanu's basically been kind of worthless at this point. Hooper had 5 points last week. Yeah. I'm not like... So... I like Hooper, but he's doing exactly what he did last year. It's 12, 13, 14 fantasy point game, 5-point game, 10, 5. Like this is what he does. This is what Hooper does. If you have him, ride the storm, I guess. But I don't know. Like after 4 weeks, you're gonna start seeing tight ends start to separate themselves a little bit. Like you're gonna find out if Mark Andrews really is real. And if Darren Waller is really real and like what is actually happening, you know what I mean? Right. And like the landscape will shift. But as of right now, we're all in a situation where we got the 32 starting tight ends on a dartboard and we're throwing a dart until we hit somebody. Yep. And the largest target right in the middle is like Travis Kelce.
Yeah. It gets smaller with each guy.
Like that's an easy pick. The Colts, Jacoby Brissett has not been a bad option this week, especially against the Atlanta Falcons defense. He might be a good streaming option for you in leagues if you are desperate for a quarterback.
12-team league.
I think there's other options out there.
Yeah.
But if you want to wait till after the waiver priority passes and you get to Thursday and you're
Brissett, honestly, Brissett is not a bad streaming option.
Not a bad streaming option at all. Marlon Mack, 7 points.
Not great, but
yeah, I don't really know how I feel about Marlon Mack against Atlanta. Yeah.
Oh, I love him against Atlanta.
Against Atlanta, yeah, but like long term, he kind of makes me.
He's kind of, but like,
what do you have? 21 points week 1.
Yeah, he's kind of where he got drafted.
Yeah, I
fourth
round. He's inconsistent.
Yeah,
is what he is.
Like this is where he gets 21 and 7.
I'm like sitting here looking at all these players, going, "Oh, which ones are bust? Which ones are not?" No, maybe just guys are inconsistent. Like,
yeah,
it just dawned on me. What did T.Y. Hilton do last week? Because I totally missed
I think it was like 12 points.
Was it 12 points?
I'll go double check.
T.Y. Hilton too. I don't want to say if you own all the Colts, you probably got to start them. But against Atlanta,
it's a good week for the Colts.
It's a good week. It's 48 over under is what I said. So I think there's going to be a lot of points to score.
Although Atlanta did hold the Eagles to 20 points, but the Eagles were also banged up the whole game. So
this will be our last team. By the way, but yeah, I would. So you would start Hilton for sure this week.
I probably would start Hilton.
Yeah, and then what about Ebron? 1 touchdown last week. He's been basically worthless in fantasy. The Ebron people are going to come out in droves and be like, "I told you so. The touchdowns are coming."
He also had 3 catches for 25 yards.
Yeah. That's what Ebron did last year. 3 catches. He had 1 game where he had 3 catches and 3 touchdowns. Freaking Ebron.
He is a good red zone player.
Yeah, he's a good red zone target, but there's
other tight ends.
Especially
there's
with
just
Luck
so
out.
many other tight ends that
with Luck not there anymore and Brissett, like they're good. They haven't been a bad offense, and Brissett has not been bad. It's more or less the fact that they're not going to get in the red zone as much as Andrew Luck did.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So if you have Ebron, I drop him. Like.
Yeah,
I get rid of him now. There's no reason to. I do the same thing with Jared Cook with the Saints.
Well, unless you're in a really, really deep league. But yeah, I would.
Right. Well, then you have
Jared Cook and Ebron.
Now you have Jared Cook without
Drew Brees. Oh yeah, so Jared Cook is see you later.
Yeah, see you later. Eric Ebron gone, but so yeah, I think there's only 2 guys that are worth starting at this point, and then Brissett streaming options. Yep. So that'll do it for the Falcons at Colts. Next week we'll talk about the rest of the matchups. We only got to 4 in this show, so we got a lot of matchups to go through next episode. But that'll do it. Be sure to listen tomorrow. Break down the rest of the episode. Break down the rest of the episode. Break down the rest of the matchups, and then we'll do our starts and sits for the week. Do you got anything to leave our audience with before they finish their car ride to work?
The only advice I'd give you, the most important advice this week.
Oh boy.
Is start Patrick Mahomes.
If you don't start Patrick Mahomes, you're in trouble. Don't forget to check out the fantasychampions.com articles, content, all that stuff.
Check out our website.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And talk to you tomorrow, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.